The galaxy had existed without Earth's input for an awfully long time. Civilizations rose and fell in elegant orbits of diplomacy, interstellar trade, and the occasional passive-aggressive planetary blockade. The galactic community, a bureaucratic behemoth of 147 member species, operated like an HOA in space. Meddlesome, vaguely threatening, and obsessed with appearances. And then came Earth. Humanity's entrance into the galactic stage didn't happen through discovery or diplomacy. No, it happened the same way toddlers discover fire, by accident, panic, and a lot of screaming. For centuries, Earth had been something of an unlisted cosmic theme park for the galaxy's bored elite. Upper-class alien adolescents from places like Virex Prime and the Zyxian Cloud used to zip past Earth in stealth cruisers for sport, occasionally abducting a human or two for kicks. It was the equivalent of cow tipping, except the cows wore jeans and screamed in multiple languages. No harm intended, no consequences expected. It was all in good fun, until they abducted someone's grandson. Little Rafi Mendoza had just turned 8 when a shimmering, disco ball-shaped ship plucked him off his backyard trampoline mid-jump. Unfortunately for the abductors, they didn't realize 2 critical facts. First, Grandma Lucia was watching. Second, Grandma Lucia had a shotgun, a background in guerrilla tactics from the 70s, and a strong dislike for hovering pests. The alien teens barely had time to activate their cloaking field before Lucia blew out their stabilizer with rock salt and rage. The saucer crash-landed in her neighbor's cornfield. Half the ship was wrecked. The other half was rapidly being dismantled by a growing crowd of nosy uncles and tinfoil-hatted conspiracy theorists. The alien captive, a sniveling iridescent being named Yulo, sobbed and dripped sparkly mucus on the barn floor. He was the son of a Zyxian High Chancellor and wore enough diplomatic immunity to declare war with a sneeze. Unfortunately for Yulo, Grandma Lucia wasn't fluent in galactic legalese and didn't care. The incident should have been a footnote. It should have been cleaned up by the Council's diplomatic corps with the usual cocktail of memory wipes and hush money. But Earth, in its characteristically chaotic fashion, did something unprecedented. They kept the alien. For 6 days, Yulo was interrogated, by which we mean terrified, by a makeshift panel of ex-military conspiracy theorists, MIT dropouts, and one enthusiastic barista who swore his espresso machine was communicating with him. The alien spilled everything: tech specs, star maps, power ratios, everything. He didn't even wait for threats. Just seeing a VHS copy of War of the Worlds playing in the corner sent him into a full breakdown. Then came the ransom. Earth didn't want money. They wanted stuff. Schematics, reactor blueprints, translation matrices. One hand-scrawled note read, "One glowing jelly kid in exchange for everything you know about gravity engines." Surprisingly, the Zyxians paid up. Not because they respected Earth, but because Yulo was loud, embarrassing, and had the diplomatic subtlety of a foghorn. They figured it was easier to trade some outdated tech than deal with the PR disaster of Zyxian air tortured by Backwater Planet with coffee-based interrogation methods. Humans returned the alien. Unceremoniously, they handed him over in a taped-up dog crate with a sticker reading "Live Animal. Do not feed after midnight." What Earth didn't return was the tech. Over the next 6 months, everything changed. While world governments scrambled to suppress news of the encounter, engineers and hobbyists dissected the blueprints with frightening enthusiasm. A toaster-sized energy converter became the Holy Grail. Reverse-engineered and rebuilt with whatever could be found at Home Depot, it powered everything from electric cars to backyard orbital cannons, most of which were immediately confiscated by frightened authorities. The toaster itself became a symbol. It was no longer just a kitchen appliance. It was proof. Proof that aliens existed, that Earth wasn't alone, and more importantly, that our household objects might just be a few wires away from godhood. Conspiracy theorists held rallies. College students built clubs around appliance-based propulsion theory. One startup raised $40 million in crowdfunding to build the world's first fusion-powered blender. But while the public played, the governments got serious. Under the umbrella of the hilariously misnamed Department of Low-Orbit Affairs, a black-budget coalition formed. Engineers, soldiers, rogue scientists, and one linguist who swore his cat was channeling alien frequencies gathered in a desert bunker. Their mission was simple: build something that could fly. The alien designs were elegant, efficient, and utterly incomprehensible. But what the humans noticed, what no alien had ever thought important, was the standardization. Everything used the same ports, the same power cells, the same chassis mounts. The galactic community had gone all in on universal parts to ensure trade compatibility and repair efficiency. That was their first mistake. Earth's thinkers looked at those blueprints, saw the repeated patterns, and did what they always did: break rules and iterate. Within weeks, they weren't copying the alien ship, they were improving it. The toaster model was gutted, upgraded, and used as the baseline for something far more dangerous. The first ship, the Gravely mistake, wasn't pretty. It looked like a shipping container glued to a light bulb, but it flew. It screamed through orbit on a repurposed drive core and spit blue lightning from its exhaust like it owed the sky an apology. By the time the Galactic Council noticed Earth's bizarre activity, humans had already produced a half-dozen similar craft. They were building ships in abandoned aircraft hangars, under cover of fake Tesla factories and low-orbit weather research. Meanwhile, alien flybys dropped to zero. Word spread that Earth was armed and emotionally unstable. Unfortunately for the Council, not everyone got the memo. A few rogue scavenger clans kept trying to buzz Earth, assuming the old rules still applied. They did not. Every new visit resulted in another downed craft, another trade, another toaster's worth of progress. Earth wasn't invading space. Earth was harvesting it. By the time the Council dispatched their first formal delegation to negotiate Earth's re-entry into galactic irrelevance, they had no idea what they were walking into. The toaster had started a war. They just didn't know it yet. The Galactic Council prided itself on two things: inefficiency and smugness. Every declaration, intervention, and bureaucratic tantrum required no less than 14 subcommittees, 3 moral alignment reviews, and at least one ceremonial dance from the aquatic delegates of Zarin Theta. So when the Council received alarming reports that a pre-stellar dirt species had shot down, reverse-engineered, and upcycled an alien vessel into flying scrap metal with a warp drive, their response was slow, deliberate, and utterly wrong. They didn't send an ambassador. They sent a regulatory enforcement team. To the Council, Earth was a minor infraction, like a child painting on the walls. No need for alarm. Just show up, scold the primitives, confiscate their toys, and disappear back into the comforting hum of diplomatic irrelevance. The task force they assembled was led by Special Envoy Zern Blex, a veteran of 7 zoning disputes and 1 failed coffee trade embargo. He had the spine of a sponge and the face of a sea slug on a bad day. His fleet consisted of 11 cruisers, all shiny, all regulation compliant, and all vastly underestimating the level of chaos they were about to encounter. They arrived just beyond Pluto's corpse-like orbit, cloaked in what they believed was undetectable stealth. It wasn't. Humanity had been watching. After the 3rd attempted abduction post-YOLO, Earth's orbital awareness systems had leveled up from accidental weather balloon footage to omnidirectional paranoia grid. Dozens of retired radar operators, amateur astronomers, and highly caffeinated engineers had built an unholy network of orbital detection. It pinged the moment the Council fleet arrived. Admiral Rafe Kincaid got the call mid-coffee. Standing at 5 feet 4 inches, with a permanently unimpressed expression and a voice like a chainsaw passed through gravel, Kincaid was everything Earth's military-industrial complex needed: ruthless, sarcastic, and pathologically allergic to bureaucracy. He was also the only person who'd ever successfully fired a toaster at Mach 9. The fleet scrambled into formation, if you could call it that. Earth's ships weren't elegant. They weren't even symmetrical. Most looked like someone had duct-taped freight containers to glowing engines, welded a few panels for aerodynamic guilt, and called it good. There were no stealth coatings, no holographic sails. Just brute functionality, an unhealthy number of railguns, and enough attitude to start a bar fight with a planet. The human flagship ISS Sarcastica took point. It was a box. A big, gray, angry box. The words "not a TOY" were stenciled on the side in warning orange. Below that, someone had spray-painted "Bring snacks" in Latin. As the alien fleet decloaked near Saturn, the humans didn't react with fear. They reacted with relief. "We thought they'd never show," Kincaid muttered, standing on the command bridge in a worn leather jacket and tactical boots. "I've had popcorn waiting for 3 days." The alien flagship hailed them. A shimmering blue hologram fizzled into view, a tall, gelatinous being in ceremonial robes that looked like melted upholstery. Zern Blex blinked all 12 of his eyes and spoke with the rehearsed irritation of a space customs officer. "Attention, primitive species designated Terra. You are in violation of Interstellar Regulation 9C Alpha. Your unauthorized development and deployment of voidcraft technology constitutes a severe breach of cosmic norms. You will deactivate all vessels and return to planetary orbit for immediate subjug." Kincaid raised a finger. "No," Zern sputtered. I beg your pardon?" "No," Kincaid repeated, sipping his coffee. "You opened with subjugation. That's not a conversation starter. That's just rude. You must comply," the alien insisted. "Your actions have endangered the sanctity of regulated space. Galactic law prohibits." "We've read your law," Kincaid interrupted again. "It's mostly circular, references species we've never met, and somewhere in Section 8 it suggests Earth's oceans are considered recreational property. So we'll pass." The alien delegation went silent. "Let me explain something," Kincaid continued, stepping forward. "You lot showed up thinking we were some backwater planet, still choking on our own carbon emissions. And yeah, fair. But then your kids started joyriding in our skies, snatching our people like it was a galactic fraternity prank. Those were unauthorized excursions. They were stupid, and now you're here, cleaning up their mess. Thing is, we're not in a mood to be cleaned." Behind him, the fleet of Earth's ships began to move. Slowly, deliberately. Dozens of mismatched vessels peeled out of lunar shadow, like bruisers emerging from fog. They didn't look like a navy. They looked like a scrapyard had gained sentience and declared war. The alien captains watched in dismay as human ships swarmed into unorthodox positions, defying every rule of fleet tactics. There was no formation, no clear hierarchy, just movement, chaotic, confident movement. Their targeting systems blinked warnings. The ships didn't match any known designations. Their armor had strange signatures, unpainted alloys, unrecognizable composites, energy emissions far beyond what their apparent mass should allow. The algorithms tagged them as unclassified hazards. And still, they came closer. Zern Blex fidgeted. "If you do not comply, we are authorized to disable your vessels and forcibly restore galactic compliance." Kincaid grinned. "Well then, Zerny boy," he said, powering up weapon systems with a few button taps. "Let's dance." The call ended. The sky lit up. From the bellies of human ships launched swarms of drones, jagged, ugly things shaped like rejected prototypes. They moved like a swarm of angry bees possessed by speed metal guitar solos. One alien officer panicked as his ship's shields were sheared open by what looked like a kinetic spike the size of a water heater. Inside the Council flagship, chaos erupted. Some ships tried to retreat. Others opened fire in confusion. But Earth's fleet wasn't fighting fair. They weren't playing by anyone's rules but their own. Lieutenant Rami Cruz piloted her swarm with surgical madness. Each of her drones had a different weapon, a different purpose, and a name inspired by kitchen appliances. Blender 1 rammed a Corvette and left a hole the size of a moonroof. Microwave 4 emitted a focused burst that melted 2 engines in 30 seconds. Another pilot deployed Project Flaming Banana. It worked. No one knew how. Back on Sarcastica, Kincaid watched the enemy fleet spiral into disorder with visible satisfaction. "You know," he muttered his second-in-command, "I almost feel bad. They came here expecting diplomacy." "Sir," she said, smiling, "they brought paperwork to a bar fight." Ships exploded. Drones deployed boarding claws. The void lit with fire and fragments. The aliens had no contingency plan for toaster-borne terror, for ships designed by gamers and forged in shipping containers. They had underestimated Earth, and Earth had waited for that. By the time the first alien captain tried to surrender, the Council fleet was already down by half. Zern Blex, hiding in a diplomatic pod, recorded a final message. Tell the Council, they started a war with breakfast machines. There's a moment, brief and nauseating, when Captain Threx of the Galactic Council's enforcement fleet considered the possibility that maybe, just maybe, things had spiraled slightly out of control. That moment arrived precisely 2 seconds after a human drone slammed a magnetic implosion mine through the aft stabilizer of his second-best cruiser, Luminar Audacity, causing it to pirouette sideways in zero-G like a drunk ballerina before vanishing in a silent blossom of fire and confused screams. Status? Threx barked, half expecting the answer to involve more screaming. They're dancing, sir, his tactical officer said, face pale and voice filled with the quiet dread of someone who had spent the last 5 minutes watching physics get creatively reinterpreted. Our targeting systems can't lock. Their ships are unpredictable. Threx growled. Unpredictable? They just did a synchronized barrel roll and launched 6 coffee makers. One of them exploded on impact. Sir, it vaporized the gunnery deck. Threx opened his mouth, closed it, rubbed his temples with both hands. Do you mean to tell me they weaponized kitchen appliances? Yes, sir. And we think they're using some kind of meme-based comms. One of our monitors intercepted a message saying, quote, deploy the Karen-class toaster squad. It's time to speak to the manager. Across the void, humanity's swarm tactics were well underway. Lieutenant Rami Cruz, pilot of Suboptimal Vengeance and field commander of Drone Division 17, was in her element. Her ship spun like a lunatic gyroscope, flinging off drones with names like Spiteball, Angry Nugget, and Greg. Every drone behaved like an extension of her own body, or at least like an unruly pet with access to high explosives. The Council ships had expected formation warfare. They'd trained against elegant maneuvering, predictable volleys, and measurable escalation. What they got was a plague of swarming projectiles guided by human intuition, caffeine, and musical playlists with far too much bass. As Rami corkscrewed through the debris cloud that had once been the Luminar Audacity, she punched her console and shouted, Weapons test log. Deploying Magbomb Mk3, now with fewer safety concerns and more righteous spite. She fired. The magnetic bomb detached from its carrier like a wrecking ball dipped in vengeance. It arced toward a Council ship that had been desperately trying to reposition, its shields already flickering under previous assaults. The bomb detonated just shy of the hull, silent in the void but violently efficient. With a visual snap, the ship's primary engine coils folded inward like they'd just realized how stupid their job was. Magbomb worked. Rami called over comms. Enemy ship disabled, claiming it for Team Kitchen Sink. Back on the flagship ISS Sarcastica, Admiral Rafe Kincaid leaned against his chair like he was watching a particularly enjoyable late-night infomercial. What's the tally? His comms officer, Ensign Cho, replied without looking up. 3 confirmed disabled, 2 drifting, 1 imploded. 1 surrendered to a drone that doesn't speak. I think it just blinked in Morse code. We have no idea why. And us? Minor damage to Hot Dog Gunboat Bravo. 1 pilot had a panic attack after flying too close to their own experimental weapon. Otherwise, clean. Kincaid sipped his coffee, unimpressed. Tell Bravo to fly wide next time. Nobody wants a repeat of the slingshot incident. The swarm intensified. Earth's tactics weren't just effective, they were insulting. The Council officers were used to enemies that obeyed rules, or at the very least pretended to care about aesthetics. But the human ships looked like bad dreams, and junkyards had formed a union. More than once, a Council targeting system hesitated, not out of sympathy, but out of utter confusion. Some ships were so asymmetrical they looked like visual errors. Others had hull art that included flames, skulls, and what appeared to be a raccoon with a rocket launcher. The flagship of the Council fleet, Virtuous Custodian, had remained untouched until now. A squad of drones broke formation and dove straight for the bridge tower, spinning erratically. Council Commander Threx watched the approach with mounting dread. His gunner barked, weapons ready. Target them. They're too small. Then guess. Sir, one of them is broadcasting something. Threx narrowed his eyes. What? It says, hi with a smiley face. Seconds later, the drone impacted the bridge shield and dispersed a concentrated electromagnetic burst. Consoles exploded in sparks. Lights flickered. The navigation system rebooted itself into Spanish for no discernible reason. The ship began listing. Commander Threx, blinking through smoke, managed to slam the emergency comms button. This is virtuous custodian to all fleet elements. Fall back. I repeat, fall. The signal died. Earth's swarm had fried the system. On the human side, chaos was being managed like an art form. Drones redeployed with modular reconfiguration, shifting from offense to defense, then back again. Every attack became a test. Every retreat, a lure. Earth's fleet wasn't just trying to win. They were collecting data, cataloging failures, and improving mid-fight. A drone squad, led by a man named Lewis, discovered that if you fired a railgun shell through your own decoy drone, the resulting shrapnel cloud tricked alien targeting systems into thinking a meteor shower had declared war. This strategy was labeled meteor diplomacy. 3 enemy ships fell for it. Meanwhile, on the Sarcastica, Kincaid prepped the Marines. All right, he said over internal comms. Start deployment. We're done playing with our food. Drop pods the size of sedans launched toward the crippled Council ships, guided by short-range thrusters and long-range annoyance. Earth's Marines weren't clad in sleek exosuits or advanced energy armor. They wore pressure-sealed power plating with extra ammo pouches, spike boots, and a disturbing number of personal logos. One had a Hello Kitty sticker on his helmet. They boarded without warning. They cleared decks in minutes. Alien crews, already panicking from the loss of systems, folded fast. The lucky ones were corralled. The unlucky ones got gently carried out by soldiers humming war songs adapted from Saturday morning cartoons. Commander Threx was finally yanked from his throne by a 2-meter-tall Marine named Dozer, who handed him a protein bar and said, "Hydrate. You're about to meet the boss." In the silence that followed, Earth's ships hovered over the drifting Council remnants like vultures made of anger and duct tape. Engines rumbled, weapons remained hot, and the whole galaxy began to feel a little smaller. On the bridge of the Sarcastica, Kincaid folded his arms and sighed. Well, he muttered, that went better than expected. Ensign Cho grinned. Should I prepare the victory playlist? Not yet. First, give me comms with whoever's still conscious. Let's see how long it takes them to admit we're not primitive. Even after all that, Kincaid smirked. We just knocked the silverware out of their mouth. Now we teach them how to chew. Captain Peta had never known silence could be so loud. His flagship, Virtuous Custodian, floated adrift in Earth orbit, power systems offline, comms scorched beyond recognition by what his engineers swore was some kind of microstar jammed inside a coffee pot. 3 of his fleet mates were gone. 2 more had gone dark. The rest were either drifting in surrender or had jettisoned their pride and requested immediate parole. The humans hadn't just won. They'd danced through the battlefield, mocked half of known physics, and redefined the word asymmetric warfare so thoroughly that the Council's military manuals would need to be rewritten in crayon just to keep up. Peta stood on the bridge in the dim emergency glow, clutching the backup comms device they had taken from a now mortified counselor's emergency diplomatic kit. It was a tacky thing, gilded edges, voice-activated in 6 prestigious dialects, and previously used only for ceremonial declarations. Now it was a lifeline. Earth Defense Fleet, he transmitted, his voice low but clear, this is Captain Peta of the Council Task Force. We surrender. Requesting ceasefire. We ask to be allowed to recover our wounded and dead. We await your terms. The silence that followed wasn't long, but it was heavy. Then came the voice. Admiral Kincaid, Earth Defense Fleet. Copy that, Captain. I'm sorry I had to come to this. My Marines are standing by, some of the best at rescue and recovery. I'll allocate squads to assist you. I'll also need to board your remaining vessels until our diplomats figure out how we're all going to explain this to our bosses. Peta blinked. The voice wasn't smug. It wasn't gloating. It was professional. He wasn't sure whether that made it better or worse. "Thank you, Admiral," he replied. "I'll make sure no further resistance comes from my crew. And, respectfully, I think I speak for many when I say we would prefer no further misunderstandings." Kincaid chuckled faintly. "Oh, believe me, so do we." Then the line cut. Peta exhaled and turned toward his stunned crew. He gave a nod. "Prepare for boarding. Make ready the wounded. Secure all systems. We're being boarded, not invaded." Somewhere behind him, a junior officer muttered, "Sir, they already did that." Peta chose not to respond. 23 minutes later, the boarding shuttle docked. Peta stood with as much dignity as he could muster in the smoking remains of his once proud bridge. Around him, crews scurried to straighten uniforms, clear debris, and hide anything that might look like weakness or worse, embarrassment. In front of him, 6 Marines stepped out first. Armor dull, faces unreadable, weapons slung but present. They moved with precision and the casual confidence of apex predators who knew their teeth were still red. Then came the Admiral. Kincaid was smaller than Peta expected. Unimpressive, even. No ceremonial robes. No gilded rank medallions. Just a dark jacket, dusty boots, and an expression that said, "I've seen worse. You should see my Monday meetings." Behind him lumbered a single giant, a Marine wearing what looked like half a tank welded into armor. He carried no weapon, just a briefcase, one large enough to contain a misunderstanding and maybe a small black hole. Kincaid stepped forward. "Captain Peta," he said. Peta, in accordance with tradition, dropped to one knee and presented his birth knife, hilt first, a symbol of surrender, trust, and personal disgrace. "My life is yours, Admiral, in exchange for the safety of my crew. May you protect them better than I have." Kincaid didn't move for a moment. Then he sighed. "Did you order the attack?" Peta looked up, stunned. "No, I was assigned to execute it." "Good," Kincaid said. "Then your honor's still intact. Keep your knife. I'm going to need someone on board I can trust to keep things civilized while we figure out how to put this mess in a box and label it oops." Peta rose slowly, confused. "You are not taking us as prisoners?" "No need," Kincaid said, stepping past him. "We're not jailers. We're salvagers." That word sent a chill through Peta's chest. And then came the bureaucrats. The council's senior representative, Counselor Varnek's Loop, had not taken defeat well. From a moment the ship's systems went dark, he'd been storming around like an angry Pomeranian, chewing through crew morale, common sense, and at least 2 power cables in a fit of stress-induced nibbling. Now, seeing humans strut through his ship like it was a food court, his patience cracked. "You," he barked at Kincaid, marching forward. "You will regret this humiliation. The Council will never tolerate such primitive disrespect. You'll be exiled, sanctioned, flattened. You're parasites, upstarts." Kincaid didn't blink. He just tilted his head, like a cat deciding whether to swat or ignore. "And you, Loop spat, should abandon whatever misguided schemes you think you've launched. You're a footnote, a historical hiccup, a statistical blip in the galaxy's progress." Kincaid raised one hand, motioned behind him. The giant Marine stepped forward, popped open the briefcase, and dumped the contents on the nearest command console. It was a toaster, a gutted one, its insides exposed. Wires, coils, reassembled circuits, Earth-standard scribbles beside alien inscriptions, and a tiny sticker on the side that read, "Property of Yulo. If lost, please return to the 8th moon of Zyxia." "We got this from your people," Kincaid said, voice cold. "And with it, we got you. Your power grid specs, your language trees, your modular fleet templates. You should be flattered." Loop's lip curled. "You stole." "We learned," Kincaid snapped. "There's a difference. You took from us first. Centuries of abductions, violations, mockery. You thought it was funny. Your spoiled brats poked the wrong bear." He leaned closer. "And now we're awake." Loop fell silent, his fur bristling with rage and fear. He opened his mouth to speak, but Peta stepped between them. "Enough," the captain said. "This is not the time for threats. The humans have bested us, and they're showing more restraint than we deserve." Kincaid's eyes flicked to Peta and gave a nod. "I like you," he said. You get to keep your ship, but your engines stay cold until we say otherwise. Behind him, teams of engineers and Marines were already deploying to the other ships, recovering wounded, cataloging systems, uploading entire NAV banks to portable drives labeled Loot This One. Humanity wasn't just victorious. They were thorough. Anything else? Kincaid asked, turning to Loop. The counselor was silent. Didn't think so. That night, in the hangar bays of Mars orbit, the disabled ships began arriving. Salvaged, towed, repaired just enough to fly. Earth's engineers swarmed them like kids at a new playground. Every panel popped, every circuit mapped. One tech licked a control stick and was promptly promoted for bravery. Admiral Kincaid stood at the window of Sarcastica, watching the captured ships descend. "Tell Earth," he said to his comms officer, "start prepping interrogations. And find me every damn map they've got." The comms officer nodded. "And the wounded? Send them to Earth. Full treatment. Let them see what real medicine looks like when it's not been designed by a committee with 6 tentacles and a god complex." As he watched the humans swarm over the once pristine ships, Kincaid allowed himself one satisfied breath. This wasn't just a win. It was a warning. Earth was done playing by the galaxy's rules. From now on, they were writing their own. In bold, with toaster parts. Captain Petta stood beside the boarding ramp as the last of his crew were transferred to the care of Earth's medics. Humans who, despite having just dismantled half his fleet, treated the injured with care and efficiency. That contradiction gnawed at him. Earth was savage in war, but civil in peace. It was like watching a lion politely bandage the gazelle it just mauled. Confusing, disarming, terrifying. Inside his ship, the mood had shifted from shock to quiet dread. Not dread of retaliation. Earth had already done that. But dread of what came next. The humiliation wasn't just military. It was cultural. The idea that a fringe planet, once considered a galactic punchline, had not only resisted but dismantled a council task force using what could only be described as improvised toaster warfare? Unthinkable. The implications would ripple through every star-choked corridor of political power. Now, Petta stood once more in the observation bay, awaiting the arrival of Admiral Kincaid. He wasn't sure whether he feared him or admired him. Possibly both. The door hissed open, and Kincaid strode in. Behind him, the ever-present hulking Marine, Dozer, carried a new briefcase. Petta noted with some amusement and concern that this one bore a warning label. May contain irreversible ideas. "Captain," Kincaid said, nodding. "Nice place. Little scuffed, but structurally sound." Petta gestured toward the central table. "We can speak privately here. The council members are awaiting you." Kincaid sighed theatrically. "Wonderful. Nothing I love more than being yelled at by 10-foot bureaucrats who've never seen the inside of a tool shed." The council chamber aboard the flagship was a circular room built for grandeur. High ceilings, polished obsidian floors, walls lined with floating glyphs that shimmered with legal precedent. Normally, it intimidated guests. It didn't work on Kincaid. He marched in like he owned the place. Dozer followed, the briefcase in one hand, the other casually resting on a thigh-mounted rail, pistol the size of a baseball bat. The Marines had remained behind at Kincaid's request, not out of respect, but because he thought it would be funnier to walk in with just one guy and a bag of sarcasm. Counselor Varnek's Loop was already mid-rant when they entered, and this entire display of aggression shall be recorded as a war crime. You've broken every rule of first contact. You are in possession of restricted technology. Your actions have destabilized an entire quadrant of lawful space. Kincaid waited. Loop turned to him. "Human, you will answer for this." Kincaid walked up to the center of the table, gently set down the briefcase, and flicked the latch. It opened with a quiet click. Then he appended the contents onto the polished table. A single, scorched toaster tumbled out. It clanged against the obsidian with a noise that echoed like a punchline. "There," Kincaid said, stepping back. "That's what we got from you. That's what started this whole mess. One toaster, taken from your people when they abducted a child from our planet. No diplomacy. No protocol. Just theft and entitlement. You want to accuse us of overreacting?" Loop stared at the appliance like it might explode. You You build a fleet from this? No, Kincaid said. We built a civilization from it. Because unlike your entitled, cruise ship-spawned youth, we pay attention. We look at things. We learn. You dropped a crumb of technology into a forge of desperation and innovation and were shocked when we hammered it into a sword. Counselor Yachin, a serpentine being with glimmering scales and a penchant for legal citations, slithered forward. You stole council-grade technology. We reverse-engineered junk your own people left behind after illegally trespassing and abducting ours, Kincaid snapped. And guess what? We got better at it. Loop scowled. It changes nothing. The council will never allow you to claim equal footing with established species. You lack the culture, the ethics, the refinement. We built warp drives and warehouses, Kincaid interrupted. Your ships were built by generations of carefully preserved institutions. Ours were built by angry engineers in basements who hadn't slept in 3 days. You think that's not refinement? Peta couldn't help it. He smiled. Kincaid leaned in. You gave us a challenge. We gave you a lesson. We're not asking for your approval. We're informing you. Humanity is not going back in the box. The room went cold. Then Counselor Yachin spoke again, slowly. And what is it you want now, Admiral? What's your price for? Peace? Kincaid folded his arms. Simple. Recognition. Access. Trade. We want a seat at the table. Lou made a choking sound. Unthinkable. You know what else was unthinkable? Kincaid said. 5 hours ago, your fleet had a 97% confidence rating that we were unarmed primitives. You called us a statistical blip. Now you're negotiating with us. Things change. And if we refuse? Yachin asked. Kincaid gestured to the Marine. Dozer? Dozer reached into the briefcase again and pulled out something small, round, and glowing. This, Kincaid said, is a microfusion grenade. We designed it last week. Took the toaster's power matrix and gave it a purpose. We made 2,000 of them. Cheap, scalable, efficient. He set it gently on the table. No, we're not threatening to use them. I'm showing you what we do with gifts. Loop hissed. You're nothing but pirates. No, Kincaid replied. We're students. Fast ones. A silence settled again. Peta spoke for the first time. I would advise listening to him. Earth is dangerous not because of what it takes, but because of how quickly it becomes better than what it took. Loop slammed the table. Then perhaps we should end this farce and return with a real fleet. Kincaid's smile returned, sharp, cruel, amused. Please do. We'd love another round of field testing. That was the final word. 4 months later, 3 surviving council vessels departed Earth orbit with a full human delegation aboard, en route to the first integration summit. The treaty would establish Earth as a provisional member of the galactic community. The name of the treaty? The Accords of Appliance-Driven Ascension. As for Counselor Loop, he did not return. Somewhere en route to the summit, he attempted a mutiny or a reassertion of diplomatic order, depending on who you asked. He was last seen standing near an airlock and shouting something about biological inferiority. The door opened. He didn't come back. No search parties were dispatched. His name was quietly deleted from the summit guest list. Back on Earth, humanity celebrated not with parades or monuments, but by continuing to build. More ships, better drones, a working prototype of something called a gravitoaster cannon. No one quite knew what it did, but it rattled glass in 5 countries when it powered on. In orbit, Admiral Kincaid stood once more aboard Sarcastica, watching the stars. They thought they were doing us a favor, he said to his XO, showing us where we didn't belong. She nodded. They were wrong. He smiled. No, they were right. We didn't belong in their galaxy. But we're not here to fit in. He turned back toward the stars. We're here to upgrade it.